three filmmakers with nothing in common. They thought they had it all figured out. They don't just follow the movies, they make them. Alexander Pavlak, Mario Silvas, and Jamal Alexander are the makers on film.
And I'm back. And black.
You are only one of those things, and it wasn't the second one.
You don't know that. In fact, I have some African heritage.
Do you now?
Yes.
Is that why you boycotted the Oscars?
I don't want to talk about it.
How you doing?
All right, you?
Doing okay.
Mario joining us?
Eventually. Last he said to me was that he was getting coffee.
Okay.
So God only knows how long that's going to take.
Like, is he home or did he go out for?
That's a very good question. And when he gets on, we'll ask him.
Okay.
He usually makes it, so that's what I assumed he would be doing, but
Okay.
you never know with Mario.
Every day is a thrill ride with him.
I know, right?
Yeah. Oh, Training Day is going to TV.
The movie with Denzel Washington?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a TV version of that?
Yes, because everything's going to TV now, even Rush Hour.
Oh my God, you were not serious about that.
Yeah, Rush Hour is becoming a TV show. You haven't heard?
No.
There's even a trailer for it now.
Give me a second. Did you see the Oscars last night?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, well, this is a show about movies and TV. That really kind of is it.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
But did you watch it?
No.
Oh, why were you boycotting it?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. This guy's got some moves, but neither one seems to have
Comedic skill?
chemistry or charm like the other two had. Oh, Mario's online.
Have him watch that before I comment on what you just said. By the way, Gods of Egypt looked terrible, and it tanked apparently. Bad. Bad.
Last night when I saw Zoolander.
Yeah.
I was just walking by and I heard a whole bunch of people walking out because it ended at the same time as ours did. And they were pretty much saying like it was just nothing but explosions and just like that was it. Like it was just all explosions and it just like what's it called? Like CGI shit. Just that was it. Nothing good.
From the moment I saw the trailer, the first thing that popped in my head is why anybody would think Gerard Butler is big enough to open just a straight CGI movie. I mean, Gerard Butler is great, but he's kind of a second-tier action hero.
Yeah.
He's Liam Neeson action hero. He's not, Will Smith, or well, at this point, Chris Pratt or Dwayne Johnson or God, who else is pretty big right now? Maybe even that what's his name, Magic Mike kid. Channing Tatum. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, shit, I know his name. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I mean, to get over nowadays, you either have to get a pre-existing franchise with a built-in fan base, or you find a big name that's a franchise into themselves, like a Spielberg or Tarantino or I don't know, big star, I guess.
Yeah. It's almost like you had to, like, years back. I don't know, it's like years back, a couple years back. You had to. Not so much nowadays.
Yeah, you can't open a movie just you can't open an original product anymore unless you have a big name, and most times those big
And
names right
if you
now.
do,
Yeah,
yeah, and if you do, it has to be like it has to be an amazing film.
yeah.
Like, well, it's really funny when whatchamajig came out, Matrix. When the Matrix first came out, uh, I, as well as my professor, which is really funny, we first saw it when it just came out in the theaters. You know,
Mm.
he was in California, I was in Arizona, and we both saw it when it first came out. And we're like, holy shit, this is going to be an awesome film. And it didn't take off for about 6 weeks. You know, it was just some film. It was nobody had ever heard of, and for the time, like it was something that no one had ever thought of doing. And 6 weeks later, you know, word of mouth came out, and at the time, yeah, Keanu Reeves was pretty popular, but he hadn't done anything in a while. In between, fucking, well, nothing too much, and all of a sudden, Matrix came out. 6 weeks later, it was revered as one of the best films of all time. It's such a good movie, and I'll admit it's a great film. Uh, Keanu Reeves, there we go. That's what I was looking for.
I'm trying to think. That may be one of the last like original things that really took off. Because
Mm,
not long after, like some of the first comic book movies took off, and then they started this trend of making pre-existing things into franchises. Not just comic books. Look at Pirates of the Caribbean, older film franchises, uh, video games. Even though they've only done like one or two, technically two successful franchises with that. Neither one was good. Uh,
What are the two successful ones? Resident Evil and what else?
the Lara Croft movies, Tomb Raider.
Oh, Tomb Raiders,
those
yeah.
really were successful. They were only successful because 13-year-old boys won. Like, they
Well,
were only successful because the films themselves catered to what the audience was,
Well,
and
no,
that's
I
all.
like I said, they weren't good. I was just saying that they turned a profit
That's true.
and
Yeah,
had sequels. But no, to date, there's never been a good video game movie.
dude, Blood Rain. I was trying to think of it. I was like, fuck, what was that shitty movie? Did you guys ever watch Blood Rain?
No.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I've seen the first one,
yeah, it was terrible.
House of the Dead.
House of that Jesus Christ. Was it Uwe Boll?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the fact that in my brain, I like I can remember shitty movies and shitty actors and shitty directors. But if you're like, oh, I just saw the greatest movie in the world, and it was this, so and so did it, and this person directed it, I'm like, I've never heard of that person. Like, I've heard of them, but I just don't know them.
Yeah.
I don't know why my brain is wired like that.
Wait. So aside from Gravity, what's the worst movie you've ever seen, or the one that sticks out the most?
Cliche. Um,
Oh, I'm sure you meant to say Hidden Claw.
oh, I admit
Ooh,
that thing's a piece of shit. That's just going
ooh.
without saying.
Both just throwing fire at one another. But what sticks out? You didn't even see Fridge, by the way.
No,
Which
I did.
you did?
Yeah, I saw Fridge.
Is that the worst movie you've ever seen?
I'm trying to think, actually. What is the worst one?
Deathbed?
Manos, The Hands of Fate.
Haven't seen it.
Really? You think that's the worst movie?
I honestly think that's the worst film I've ever seen.
Not The
Okay.
Room?
No. But no, see, The Room was endearing because it was so bad that it was awesome. It was so bad that it was funny. You know, it's got a cult following behind it now,
Uh,
which is
so does
fucking
Manos.
great. It's a different cult following. Like if you watch at the art house in Tucson, I forget the name of it.
Loft.
Thank you. Um, they have room nights where you can go and watch it and make fun of it. Same thing with like a Rocky Horror. You know, it's on the level with that.
Yeah.
But then Um, Manos the Hands of Fate is just like you couldn't. I couldn't get into it. Like I saw it the first time, and I'm like, wow, I don't ever want to see this again. And then I got really high, and a friend, he was doing was the MST3K,
Yeah.
and we watched it with that, and he was laughing his ass off. I still didn't find it funny, and I was high out of my mind.
Well, they did a live version of the MST3K with Manos the Hands of Fate, which was even funnier than whichever one that you probably saw, if you didn't see the live one.
Yeah, I didn't see the live one.
Yeah, no, the live one, you can catch it on their website, rifftracks.com. And it's worth checking out if you want to give the movie a second chance. If you don't want to give the movie a second chance, which I can totally understand, then yeah, don't bother. But the live version that they did was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think I will.
Yeah.
Just personally, it's not my cup of tea.
Oh, and Archie's going to TV too.
Like the comic book, The Archies?
Yep. They're calling it Riverdale.
Why?
Well, it's because they're from Riverdale. It's the high school they go to.
No, it's more along the lines of why are they doing that?
We just had the discussion about like pre-existing franchises.
No, and I get that, but it's like, can't they just stop for a second?
No.
And just try to come up with something instead of just trying to pump shit out?
You would think that nowadays they would be very adventurous and be willing to go out of their comfort zone, but it's quite the opposite. Money is so tight that Hollywood wants every penny they can get, so they go with pre-established things like the Archie.
Oh no, and I get that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's still like at the end of the day, it's just like cool. It's either I'm gonna watch a piece of shit or I'm gonna watch a bigger piece of shit.
Well, no, I think it's just a trend now. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was westerns. The 80s, it was the 70s and 80s. It was like cop dramas down in Miami. Kung fu movies and stuff. The 90s were all about excess, and right now we just have this trend of like converting something into film. But again, in like the 60s and 70s, or well, no, 60s, it was the westerns. In the 70s, it was Dirty Harry type movies. In the 80s, it was Rambo and all of them, action movies. In the 90s, it was disaster movies. The 2000s were, I want to say, revivals. There was the prequel trilogy was there. I don't know.
The 2000s were the 80s of fashion. Because everybody saw it, everybody lived it, but there was nothing spectacular about it.
Yeah, I guess I would go with that. Well, let's have this conversation again in like 10 years, because I'm sure the fact that we lived through it and it's so recent is probably making us cynical about it. But the mark of the really great ones when they transcend those sort of fads, because Spielberg's still around.
Yeah, but you're never gonna get rid of Spielberg. I mean, he's
well, no matter what he it seems like he always does something different to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, but he's usually the one who starts those trends.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to
remember he was the original trendsetter back in the 70s.
Well, what did he do that started? He
Indiana
did.
Jones.
Okay, you could argue that started the 80s action genre, and you could probably argue that what do you call it? Jurassic Park started the big disaster films, sort of.
I wouldn't say that's a big disaster film.
Yeah, it's a big it's borderline for me only because it's like really CGI heavy. And that's the one thing it really has.
How does CGI make that automatically make it a disaster film?
No, I'm just saying the sort of the hallmark or trait of all the disaster films is large, expansive shots of like big, heavily CGI'd events happening. And I kind of think of Spielberg as the guy that really originated that sort of thing.
Trying to think.
But yeah, Spielberg does set trends quite a bit. I will give you that. And again, I'm just saying it's the mark of a really, really good, one of the greats, basically. In my mind, the best director ever.
Woody Allen.
Come on, Alex. Throw out Tarantino. You know you want to. You know you want to.
No, actually, I don't think he. Well, he is one of our one of the greatest directors ever, but I don't think he's above Spielberg. If it wasn't for Spielberg, Tarantino would never be around.
Here's how I make that distinction that he's the best. You could put Tarantino into a box, basically. Like he has his style, which he's only sort of he only works in that style, or he has his preferred. He did have his preferred subject matter, which was the 70s
Hmm.
and anything 70s related. Lately, he's gotten out of that, but he still has his style.
Yeah, but now he's going to cowboy films, so he likes those genre pieces,
Yeah,
those period pieces.
yeah. And then you have Spielberg who does something like AI, and then there's something like Catch Me If You Can.
Well, AI actually wasn't
No, somebody else
meant.
wrote it. Yeah, somebody else wrote it.
Well, I don't think he
Yeah,
directed it.
He did.
Or
yeah,
did
he
he just
directed
produce
it.
it?
No,
Okay.
no, no, he directed it. It was because Kubrick had just passed away, or Kubrick knew he was going to die, and so he gave it to um,
Spielberg.
Spielberg. So that's how that came about, and I'm pretty sure the original, like, there's no way that film should have been what it was because it was an okay film. I mean, I wasn't too impressed with AI. It was a good film
It was
more
a
than
decent
anything
film. It
else.
was a decent film.
But I couldn't imagine Kubrick doing that.
Kubrick's version would have been fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, I can't even fathom how that would have been, but I would have seen it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, God, I'm trying to think of other Kubrick films. All I can think of is what was it, 2001? Was it
2001.
The
Come on,
Shining,
you can do it.
okay? The
um,
shot.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, they're not bad movies. It's just I don't know that he enters my top five directors.
What was the comedy that he did? Doctor Strangelove.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, and Spielberg has a comedy to his name that I'm aware of.
Big,
Wait, that wasn't him.
wasn't it? I don't know.
That was Ron Howard.
Oh,
No, he directed 1941, which is a movie that starred John Belushi.
yes, it did.
And that's the only thing I can think of that he's done comedy. The only other thing that I can think of Spielberg not getting his hands into was horror, which is weird because he does. I think he does tension very well. Oh, I just realized Spielberg directed Amistad.
Yeah, dude.
That's probably why I love that movie so much.
Dude, Spielberg he has a huge fucking name under his belt.
Oh no, he's the best director for me, the best director ever. Oh, and want to know a real sign that he's that good? He's able to switch up. He grew with the times, because eventually he went from doing like just like straight
Well,
up normal films like
that one.
even his action films like freaking the Indiana Jones series. Like at least he's the guy from that era that learned how to do CGI. The only other guy I can think of the guys are the Scots, Tony and Ridley. Look at Lucas. He didn't really kind of catch up.
In CGI.
CGI and just about everything else that makes a modern movie a modern movie.
Well, he did the Star Wars prequels, which was basically all CGI.
What? I thought that was somebody else directing those.
No, Lucas directed all three of them. That's why they were kind of sucky. Because he hadn't really directed anything like for almost 30 years prior to that.
Hang on.
So he was way out of practice. The
Don't
the
quote, don't
the
quote me, don't quote me on this, but I think that Ryan Reynolds movie, when they were advertising the director, they like said, this guy directed one of the Star Wars, and that was kind of his big thing.
well, yeah, he probably did like Empire or Jedi. Those two weren't directed by Spielberg or Lucas. But the,
I need to go get something done real quick. Give me a second.
okay.
Hang on, I'm looking it up right now. He's in self-imposed semi-retirement. I guess why? I'm guessing because the fans hate him now. Which in
That,
that case, fuck the fans. It's his franchise. Let him do whatever the fuck he wants with it.
well, when you have a built-in audience to your franchise and you make a movie and everybody hates it, you kind of have to take that to heart a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why he sold off Star Wars. Another part was because he's getting kind of old and didn't want to be doing Star Wars for the rest of his life. He had other stuff he wanted to do. So he knew the stuff that he wanted to do wasn't really going to net him money. So he just sold off the one thing that he had of any value so he could guarantee those people would have jobs and that he wouldn't run the company into the ground. And now he's just going to take those billions of dollars that Disney gave him and just go do his own shit and be happy. He'll probably be like Prince and just make movies and put them in a vault and never actually show anybody.
By the way, Prince is just doing that until he dies, and then when he dies and they start selling off that music, his family is gonna make a ton off of it. But
Oh no,
yeah, he did direct all of them.
yeah,
My bad. My bad.
yeah, he did all the prequels, yeah, and I think that's why too, because I will attest to this to the day I die that I think Hayden Christensen is actually a pretty decent actor. It was Lucas's direction that made everybody stiff and wooden and look like they didn't know what they were doing or didn't know what was going on.
All right, fine. If you're gonna throw that out there, then it begs the question: name one other role or name a role that you think he was a really good actor in.
Hayden Christensen.
Yeah,
Uh, Give me a second. Let me look up his stuff because I don't know his body of work off the top of my head.
I'm looking at it. Virgin Territory. Nope. Jumper. Did not like Jumper at all. Takers. That's an action movie, I guess. Outcast. What the hell was an Outcast?
Oh, he was yeah, Outcast. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Who else was an Outcast?
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I'm aware, and yeah, I saw the trailer, and it looks not good.
It's not a good movie, but he does a pretty decent job in it. He
What's Nick Cage doing this time?
Outcast with Hayden Christensen.
Oh God.
Uh, Alex says that, and he swears that Hayden Christensen is a decent actor, and that it was uh, Lucas who ruined the performances of the actors in the prequels.
Oh yeah, dude. Think about fucking what's his name?
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor. Ewan
Oh,
McGregor's a great actor.
And a fantastic actor, and you know
Yeah.
what? I thought he did a good job in those prequels. I thought he was the him and Portman were the only like really because they were the only ones really featured other than Christensen. That I thought the two of them did a good job, but I can't think of anything else Hayden Christensen's been in that I said, oh well, that proves he was a good actor.
well, even Portman's acting was wooden. What's his face? The dude from Taken. Qui-Gon Jinn. What's his face? He's
Oh,
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson. Liam
yeah.
Neeson's a good actor, and he looked like he was high the entire time. Like George
I
Lucas's
wouldn't be
act,
surprised if he was. Like,
George Lucas's acting was, here's some weed, here's some coke, now here's a lightsaber, now go do something.
I don't think Portman was wooden or stiff. I just felt like it seemed like she was lost. Like,
Everybody seemed
like
like they were lost, yeah.
no, it seemed like she was. I'm a serious actress. What the hell am I doing in this? That's what it seemed like to me.
Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who played it the first time, Alec Guinness, he hated those films. He didn't want to do them. He only did them for the paycheck, and he delivered a hell of a performance. So there's no excuse for her to be all like, "I'm a serious actress. What am I doing here?" If I'm sure that's not what was going on, but even if it was, there's no reason for anybody to do that. You should give it your all,
A-
no matter what.
Absolutely, but just watching her in that film, like felt it just for me, it felt like she wanted to be anywhere else in the world other than right there.
I
Well,
think
because she was on a
I think
green
that
screen.
I think every actor gave exactly what they could, but it was because the circumstances that they were given. Um, like Alex was just about to say before I rudely cut him off, they all shot green screen. There was nothing for them to interact with.
Yeah.
You know, they had nothing to go by. I mean, what's his name? Oh, I can't even think of the name of them. Lord of the Rings. Gandalf.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking
Oh,
about.
I can't think of his name right now.
Ian
Fucking
McKellen.
Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen.
Oh, you
Um,
actually beat me to one.
he started crying on set one day because this is apparently a direct quote from him, but he started crying on set one day because he was acting toward a tennis ball, and he's just everyone's freaking out. They're like, well, you know, what's wrong? What's wrong? You know, Peter Jackson came up to him, and he's like, this isn't why I got into acting. And that's exactly what it is right there. It's like, how can you act when you have no one or nothing to react to? So I'm a little bit forgiving when it comes to the actors themselves. When it comes to the original, fuck me. When it comes to the
Prequels.
prequels, thank you. I was going to say the other trilogy. Um, so I'm a little bit more forgiving toward the actors themselves, but the script itself sucked. You know, what's his name? Patton Oswalt has a great bit
Yeah.
on on it. If you guys have never heard it, it's fucking hilarious, and it's so true though. Have you heard it, Jamal?
Say that again.
Patton Oswalt.
What about him?
He did a joke on the prequels about the prequels, and it's so fucking true, and it's so funny. It was just like he doesn't care about where the things he loves.
You still there? Hello? Hey.
Bring in A-class actors. I mean, they were all A's, and they acted worse than fucking. I can't even think of someone who would equate to. They acted worse than Tommy Wiseau. You know?
Oh, I'm reading up on that Ian McKellen thing. It just seems like he hated being trapped alone. It was so distressing.
Exactly.
It was so distressing and off-putting and difficult that I thought I didn't want to make this film. If it's not what I do for a living. I act with other people. I don't act on my own.
Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of get that.
and especially for someone like him, because he's uh, classically trained.
Yeah.
You know, he's used to having an ensemble of people working with him. He's used to having, you know, direct reaction to audience members and a whole bunch of other slew. It's theater. I mean, we all know theater, and it's a different beast. But he's used to having those reactions, and he's used to having someone to react to. But when he has nothing but himself and then a crew who is just standing there, and mind you, the crew can't interact with him, so he's by himself, even though he's in a room full of people.
I do have to point out that it's hard to feel bad for him knowing how much money he made off of the first three.
Right,
Yeah, but money is money.
yeah, he
Like
doesn't do it for the money. He does it for the craft.
you
If if
said,
if he's gonna cry about, literally cry about how he is feeling so alienated on set because he's not really acting to anybody, then he's not really doing it for the money. The money is a bonus to him. It's gravy.
it's not like he
The
didn't know what he
money,
was
no.
getting.
See, here's the thing: the money allows him to keep doing what he wants to do.
Yeah,
He
but it
wants to learn how to be an actor, how to create, how to make this craft. And so he stars in really big budget movies because he's worked up to really big budget movies, which allows him to keep furthering studying his craft.
well, here's the thing. Like they had to have talked beforehand. He knew this was what happening, and he knew this is what he was getting into. I kind of feel like he took these next three films as just kind of like, oh, if you're gonna be paying me that much.
I don't feel that way at all.
Well, they did all three movies at once, so it
Yeah,
was a big lump sum.
Yeah,
They they, they
probably
spent
a very big lump sum.
they spent what 3 years making three movies all at once with very little writing.
yeah. I think they shot for, God, I want to say 24 months straight.
Yeah, something like that.
Jesus
There's some
Christ.
crazy, but I mean, they shot. It was probably one of the. I think it is the longest.
Now I have to look it up. What is the longest movie shoot of all time?
Yeah. Well, I
For
mean,
for a single
but see,
movie,
here's the thing. But here's the thing. They shot all three at the same time.
yeah,
Because if you were to ask which is the longest one, it
it's
could be,
The Shining, probably.
yeah, The Shining or The Heart of Darkness, or not Heart of Darkness.
Oh, that other one, yeah. Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now. Thank you. It could be either one of those because they went like 9 months um, over shoot times, which I'm pretty sure the producers loved Kubrick for that.
5 movies with the longest shooting schedules. Hang on.
I just drink cat.
The Thief and the Cobbler, 1964 to 1995.
Oh yeah, I guess like stuff like what was it, The Boy?
Yeah,
Tiefland. Tiefland, 1934 to 1954. Eyes Wide Shut, 1996 to 1998. I'm not sure why that movie would take that. Oh, wait, I think it's because the director got, I don't know.
wait, was he the one that got caught for diddling?
No, I think it's Kubrick. Kubrick, who refused to shoot in America because of his fear of flying, had an entire streets of New York rebuilt in Ice Street Studios in England. The director also once demanded 97 takes from Tom Cruise walking through the door before he would move on to the next shot.
Yeah, Kubrick was a little off.
Eyes retains the record for the longest consecutive shoot, clocking in 400 days without a day off.
Wow.
Jesus.
Gangs of New York, 2000 to 2002.
I wonder if
Which,
they're I wonder if
which,
they're accounting for like reshoots and stuff is why those are so long.
Maybe.
some say the lead actor Leonardo didn't want it competing with Catch Me If You Can. Others say the Twin Towers scene in the final shot was seen as tasteless so soon after 9/11, while Scorsese has claimed that he was doing reshoots until October 2002.
Yeah, because if you think about just principal photography,
The Evil Dead, 1979 to 1980.
Yeah, but a year's not. I mean, a
Yeah,
year is long, but
yeah,
how many breaks did they have in between?
they
yeah,
probably did it on like weekends and had to stop filming while they raised money, so it probably took weeks for them to get more
yeah,
money to do that. So
yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I've heard the stories about how Raimi had to go out and just practically beg for money to finish that film. By the
Yeah.
way, Sam Raimi directing movie called World War III.
interesting.
It's based on a book called The Next One, parts of the book, The Next 100 Years, which I recommend. I haven't read it yet, but I've read the blurbs and I've read like passages from it. It's basically this. There's a gentleman called something Friedberg. Hang on, Glenn Friedberg.
You're trying to recommend a book that you know nothing about.
Oh no, I've read some passages from it, and it seems pretty good.
Mm.
The Next 100 Years. We're basically a guy whose job is like George Friedman. I'm sorry, whose job is to kind of predict like geopolitical atmospheres. Is writing what he thinks is going to happen in the next 100 years. Some of it kind of makes sense.
It sounds pretty cool.
Are you one of those conspiracy guys, Jamal?
No, in fact, I'm the exact opposite. That's why I'm always kind of wary of Alex over here. But no, I'm the exact opposite. But some of this stuff, like he's saying, I kind of already see it happening. Like he said, there's going to be like a great conflict between us and Mexico because parts of southern United States are going to become so inundated that a lot of people will be claiming there more than they claim here.
hmm So anyway, speaking of conspiracy theories and all those kind of things, how do you guys feel about the Oscars?
I don't want to talk about it.
I didn't watch them.
Yeah. Did you at least check out Chris Rock's opening monologue? You can find it on YouTube and such.
Oh no, I didn't see that one.
He does not beat around the bush at all. He goes right for the crux of everything. So did you not watch the Oscars then there, Jamal?
I don't want to talk about it.
So is that a yes or is that a no?
That is a no, but I am aware of who won.
Are you upset because Tom Hanks didn't get any love?
I'm upset that Sly got screwed.
Why? Did you really think he was going to win?
Yes.
His performance really wasn't all that great.
Yes, it was.
Wait, what movie?
Creed.
Creed.
Wow.
It was good, but it wasn't that good.
It's a hell of a lot better than because I just rewatched the damn movie. It's a lot better than Ryland's.
I'm reading some of the comments that said Chris Rock should have introduced Charlize Theron as the first African presenter of the night to wrap up his Oscar monologue.
That would have been.
Yeah.
That took me a second. I was like, what is he talking? I was like, oh shit, I forgot she was from Africa.
Rocky is science fiction. It's set in the world where white athletes are as good as black athletes.
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
I still don't want to talk about it.
Well, do you think Well, first off, do you think, because they did a lot more stuff than just that, but do you think he was a little heavy-handed in all that, or do you think it was well-deserved?
I think this year he should have done that. That he should have just ripped them a new one. I thought let's just, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off. Just do it so next year it doesn't happen.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I still don't want to talk about it. Nobody there looks like me or Mario. And until fat people are recognized, I am not watching the Oscars.
See, didn't that girl for Precious get an Oscar?
No, she lost.
Oh, did she
No,
lose?
she ate it.
Nice.
It wasn't made out of chocolate like I had thought.
She found out about halfway through.
Okay.
Did it stop her from eating the rest of it?
For an Oscar award show though that didn't have any black people in it, a lot of people who were not born in this country won Oscars, and the quote unquote first openly gay person won an Oscar.
Which, by the way, I think Ian, who we were talking about earlier, Ian McKellen corrected Sam Smith and said somebody else won one.
Was he openly gay at the time?
I'm looking it up right now. What did he say? Sir Ian McKellen responds to Sam Smith's inaccurate Oscar speech.
But it's I'm sure he wouldn't be the first one, but he said openly gay, so I don't know how open. Sam Smith won it for his song for the new James Bond movie. Which,
right.
I didn't think it was all that good of a song. As far as James Bond title sequences
go,
I thought
yeah, you're right. He was talking about openly gay.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely not the first gay person, but he's the first one who said, "Hey, I'm gay and I got an Oscar." Do. So there is some diversity here. I mean,
not all gay people go do after all their sentences, okay?
No, but I'm pretty sure Sam Smith does.
Okay, with that voice, he can do whatever the hell he wants.
But The Revenant, the director for Revenant, Alejandro, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Please try.
Yes.
Inarritu, is that how you pronounced it?
Say it again.
I actually have no idea.
So anyway, he won the Oscar, and he was born in Mexico. The dude who did the score for The Hateful Eight, he's Italian, born in Italy, and doesn't speak a lick of English. He had to have his speech translated by what looked like his grandson, Sam Smith. And isn't Sam Smith black or part black? And also, isn't The Weeknd black?
The Weeknd is black, but Sam Smith is not.
Black. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. He was nominated for an Oscar. So apparently, some black guy was nominated for an Oscar this year.
Yeah, but that's like going to the Grammys and then figuring out who was nominated for Best Spoken Word Album.
Yeah.
You're not going to the Oscars for that.
See, here's the thing: is what he's getting at is that for the past 80 years, from what his speech was saying, for the past 80 years, it's been white after white after white after white.
No,
again, he's not saying that it's racist. Again, it was just like, that the film industry is it's a clubhouse. There's no other way of saying that.
Oh,
if you don't belong to it, you're not in.
Yeah. Well, one of the movies
I get where he's getting at.
Yeah. Well, one of the movies nominated for Best Picture this year is about a guy who's blacklisted by Hollywood. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a clubhouse, and even You know, you don't necessarily have to be black to be disliked by them. You can just
Well,
be anybody who's subversive.
well, Chris Rock actually says no. Hollywood is racist. It's racist as hell, but it's a tolerable racist.
No,
Like
no,
he actually says that in the thing. It's a tolerable. It's a minor form of racism. It's not. What was his line? Fetch me the lemonade boy, or God, something else.
lynching or
No,
something like that.
that was part of a different joke. But
Yeah.
he's saying it's a slightly more, it's a slightly easier form of racism for it to handle. Is
Eh,
basically what he
yeah.
said.
I mean, it is, and I totally agree that I think Straight Outta Compton should have been nominated for Best Picture. I think Will Smith probably should have been nominated for his portrayal. I haven't seen the movie yet, but you know, when he takes on a serious acting role like that, he puts his whole heart and soul into it. You know,
Well,
and Hollywood loves it when you do, real people. So I don't understand why these two films weren't recognized for what they were.
here's my theory on why there aren't more black nominees for anything.
Because
For
they're
the
black.
no, for the well, that it's sort of that's half the problem. The other half is the people that are voting. Listen, the NWA, fantastic film. But if I send a white Jewish or a white kid who went to school at Yale and spent most of his time living in the Soho district to see the movie, he's not going to connect to that film. It doesn't have the same sort of gravity for him as it does somebody else, or a person of color. What they need to do is, I think, actually start, expand the actual voting population for the Academy Awards. If they had a more diverse voting segment, then they would have more diverse nominees.
Well, isn't it people in the industry who vote?
It's people in the industry, but I'm pretty sure 90%. In fact, I read somewhere that like maybe two people out of like I think they have like 100 voters. Like only either two people or 2% of the actual voting group is an ethnic minority.
Now to counter that point, though, I drive around rich, privileged white kids all the time, sorority and fraternity people. We have a classic hip hop station in town. Everybody that gets in my car loves that station, and most of the people are white and of privilege. So there is a bit of a connection there. If it's not so much what they went through, it is their music. It does kind of bring everybody together. And the basic underlining theme of Straight Outta Compton is the First Amendment right of freedom of speech, which is done in a more modern setting, which I think is it kind of got lost on people.
That
But
that
but
connection you're referring to is curiosity. They're curious about that lifestyle. That's why they gravitate towards it. It's different. It doesn't mean it affects them the same way that it affects an, an African American will hear a rap song differently than a privileged white child will.
oh no, no doubt. I mean, that is you can say that a privileged black guy is going to hear a rap song differently than an inner city white guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a lot about your status and where you come from and where you are now. I'm not denying
No,
that fact at all.
no. Again, like the difference is a privileged black person is still going to be discriminated against in many instances. So even if you took the privileged meets the privilege, the black kid is still going to hear it differently. If you want to have like a group that actually acknowledges all points of views, then you have to have a group that includes people with all sorts of views, all sorts of experience. Grabbing a bunch of kids that went to like liberal colleges and things like that, which by the way is probably a good thing. A conservative college is not going to make it in Hollywood, but no, all of those things put together, and you're going to get the same results every year. So you need to have like people from all walks of life voting instead of this one segment of film buffs essentially.
True, well, true, but it still was a powerful film, and regardless, the like I say, the fight for the First Amendment should be something that most of these people can relate to.
If we were talking about, if this was a different subject, if this was about you know what, Larry Flint, I think I'm going to look that up. Did he this? I think his film got actually nominated.
The People versus Larry Flint? I think it
Yeah.
did.
See, there you go. Because it came from that perspective, a white man's perspective. Then it got nominated. We did the same. They did the same thing with NWA. No nomination. 69th Academy Award, Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role, and then Best Achievement in Directing. So both things got over, while NWA didn't get squat.
No, it didn't, and I think that is
A
that is
crime.
quite a tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when you think of black people, you think of crime, but
No, I thought them not getting nominated. In fact, another movie that I thought was a crime didn't get nominated for best director is the kid that directed Creed, Ryan Coogler.
yeah, I mean, Coogler and Vance. Vance should have gotten some sort of nod for his portrayal of Adonis Creed.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, thank you. I knew it wasn't Vance, but I've been
Who's
watching.
Vance?
Jordan B. Vance is playing Johnny Cochran on The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Oh
And
yeah. I know
I
who Jordan B. Vance is. Okay.
yeah, the names are similar, so I get them confused for
Yeah.
obvious reasons. But I mean,
Yeah.
even Creed was really good in Fantastic Four. He was like the best part of Fantastic Four. So
So you've
he's an
seen the
amazing
movie?
actor. Yeah, I did.
Oh God, it's terrible.
It it's not that it's terrible. It's just that it's poorly constructed. There is no villain up until the last like 5 minutes, and then it's like, oh shit, we need a villain.
Yeah.
And I was watching something on it about the internet, and the guy comes up with a fantastic point. He's like, the monkey that they sent in the beginning, they could have cut out a lot of the beginning. They should have just skipped to sending the monkey through the portal. The monkey brought him back. Send the kids through the portal. They get powers, and when they come back, they realize that the monkey had powers and is destroying the world or is tearing apart, the city or whatever. And the Fantastic Four have to stop them, and then save Victor Von Doom for the sequel. Have him come back and tear apart the planet instead of making him almost a footnote.
By the way, before we get too far off topic, we focus on the black nominees. It's uh, I I think we do because we have this notion that if they get in through the door, everybody else will. Because it's not like Asian actors have had a lot of success at the Oscars.
Um,
In fact, list of Asian Academy Award winners and
Uh,
nominees.
I know Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I think Ang Lee won for. Did he win for Brokeback Mountain too?
I Best actor 3 times an Asian actor has been nominated. Best picture 8 times in its 88-year history.
Okay.
Best actress once.
Who was she?
Meryl Oberon for The Dark Angel in 1935.
Really?
Best
Okay.
supporting actor with only one win, by the way. So far, Yul Brynner has won one because for best actor, and Ben Kingsley has won one. Apparently, he's Asian.
I didn't know either one of those guys were Asian.
Father was of Indian is Indian from Kenya. Ben Kingsley.
Okay. Well, yeah, India's part of Asia.
And Yul Brynner is the Eurasian Asian in that he's from Russia and
Mm,
Mongolia.
mm. Oh,
And then best supporting actor, Pat Morita did not win for Karate Kid. That's bullshit.
he got nominated for Karate Kid?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm surprised he got nominated.
I thought well deserved in my book. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ken Watanabe, who's a great actor by the way for Last Samurai. Technically it's 7, but one is just Ben Kingsley twice.
He was really good in Last Samurai, though.
Yeah, he was. Should have won.
He,
And then
he's good in everything that he does. He should be nominated more as well.
oh, and here's the director one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really, it's 4 because 3 of them are Ang Lee.
Yeah, but each time you get nominated is it's a separate thing. So it's a special event in and of itself.
It's a special event that an Asian is being nominated anyway. Akira Kurosawa's on there, by the way.
Who is?
Akira Kurosawa.
I don't.
For Akira Kurosawa, Seven Samurai.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right, but yeah. And if I go back and then Google Latino Asian Academy Award winners, I know the two directors.
Didn't John Leguizamo get nominated for an Academy Award?
Yeah, for the past.
Yeah, for the past Latino Academy Award winners and nominees. Latin American Academy. Best Actor: Jose Ferrer, Anthony Quinn, and Damian Bitcher. Those are the four guys.
Anthony Quinn. What did he get nominated for?
Wild as the Wind and Zorba the Greek.
Oh, okay.
Best Actor in Supporting Role: Jose Ferrer again, Anthony Quinn again, Anthony Quinn again, Andy Garcia, and then Benicio del Toro twice.
Oh yeah, Andy Garcia.
For The Godfather.
Yeah.
Best Actress: 3 names. Best Supporting Actress: 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And one of them is Lupita Nyong'o. Bet you didn't know that, huh?
Did Selma Hayek get anything?
Selma Hayek.
Because Frida got a lot of attention. I don't know if she got any awards.
Yep, in fact, she was the second one.
Hmm.
It's not like, other minorities have had it easy either. Again, I feel like this is a thing to do with who's voting.
It's who's voting, and it is kind of Hollywood's still under the impression that minorities and women cannot open films or don't bring in box office draw. And to some extent, they're probably right because, white people are dumb enough to go spend money willy-nilly on films and whatnot. But
Chris
what?
Rock was right, by the way. Why the hell do we have the 2 separate categories for Best Actor and then Best Actress? Why don't we just select the best performance of the year? Oh, by the way, the Latino directors have won all the last 3.
They've been Alejandro in whatever.
Alfonso Cuarón for what movie? Uh-huh. I'll wait.
I would look it up, but the computer's just out of reach. And
For what movie? I'll wait. Go ahead. Reach over and Google it.
I don't know what movie.
Look it up.
Fucking Boys in the Hood.
Yes, that's exactly the movie.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
You looked it up. I was just buying you time.
Wait, seriously? I was just being an asshole.
You don't really believe he was nominated for Boys in the Hood, do you?
No. I was
Okay.
just being an asshole.
Okay.
I was like, because, Alex, you shouldn't believe me. At any point in time, should you have believed that?
Well, what I always found funny is when people start throwing around the word reverse racism, which isn't that just racism? Wouldn't technically reverse racism be giving people jobs based on minorities, which is basically affirmative action?
I agree with you that there's only racism, not reverse racism. Affirmative action, though, is something else completely different.
Well, technically, affirmative action would be racism because you are giving people jobs based on the color of their skin and not the merit of their ability to do the job.
No, you're absolutely right. They're giving people jobs based on the color of their skins because otherwise they wouldn't get those jobs.
Oh no, I get that.
They're not afforded the same opportunities. What they're doing by instituting of affirmative action is giving kids who are for instance, like for college scholarships, which is usually what people argue about when it comes to affirmative action or college admissions. You took the top 10% of this school, that school, and this school, but all that top percents usually end up coming in white, and that creates a diversity problem. So what do? You'll go out and you get the top 10% from this school. Now, unfortunately, some of the times that means that this kid in this school who has just as good grades as the other kid from that school will not get accepted into the school because they're trying to get this kid to come in and make things a little bit more diverse. And this is part of a larger discussion we're having. Should schools be more diverse? Yes, I believe so.
Well, yes, they should, but it's sometimes affirmative action though is detrimental to the whole thing. Uh, some like for schools and education and stuff like that, yes, that's fine. That should be schools should not be concerned with the race of people. They should just allow people in based on their scores.
But
They,
then that leads to you can't have all the kids there, and so there's a certain amount of there's a checklist you have to go through. When it comes to admissions, a lot of times colleges will have, well, you're black, and that checks out one of the check boxes that tells them, yeah, he's probably somebody we want here.
yeah,
Why? Because they're doing it because they don't have very many black students there, and they're trying to address how two things. One, that their school is not very diverse, and that leads to a very monochromatic kind of atmosphere there that doesn't really encourage the sort of dialogue and debate that people should be having. Doesn't expose kids to the other aspects of the world. The other thing it's kind of checking is that the minority children do not get the same opportunities that white children get. So now we have to go out and actually find them.
I don't know. I never got those opportunities. So
Did you have good grades?
yeah,
How good?
There was a delay there, man.
Yeah.
because that was a total lie.
I know there was, because I went to school with you.
Well, I got good grades in PIMA because I only took classes that I fucking cared about. I didn't take the fucking
There you go.
religion
Okay.
class. When I realized how much work I had to do, I was like, "Fuck that noise! I'm dropping it."
You took a religion class?
I did, and I dropped it because, well, yeah, I was raised Roman Catholic. I should be able to do religion in my sleep, and it was religion in modern culture or pop culture or something like that. I'm like, oh, dude, this should be cake. And then the woman's talking about how we're doing a paper every class that papers do, and when she said that, I'm like, oh, I'm out.
Yeah, the paper every class sucks, but that actually sounds like a fascinating subject.
It
I
probably
actually I actually took that class, which is really funny. And our professor was telling us the time that he was saying he wanted, this was when the whole like gay rights thing was like first coming out in Tucson, and he's like, okay, everybody, I want you to think about why people from a different perspective are saying that God isn't real, and why people from a different perspective are saying that he is real, and why we should be adhering to, gay people are still just people who happen to be gay. And apparently, or why Jesus would want that is what it was. And apparently this dude got so upset, he said, I'm gonna shoot you.
What?
And the teacher's like, what the fuck? And the dude just got up, said that, and then left. And everyone's like, what the fuck just happened? So we all kind of went to the balcony, and sure as shit, the dude went to his car, went into his car somewhere, produced a gun, and then started coming back toward the school. And everyone's like, teach? So
class
he went
dismissed.
over. Yeah, and everybody was like, what do they do? So they went over, or, teacher went over, locked the door, and called security right away. I'm like, holy shit, like, that's fucking terrifying.
Wait, I got up to get a charger. I did. You said the teacher said something positive about gay marriage, and that guy lost it.
Basically, he wanted everybody to realize, or to think of why some people would say that God is real or Jesus is real, or why Jesus is fake, or basically it was the it was when the gay thing was coming about, like, oh, are they real people or aren't they? I don't know how else to put that. And so he wanted the students to write a paper, do some research and write a paper and think why some people think Jesus was an actual person, why some people think Jesus wasn't an actual person. If they were, why he would want the gays to, just be treated like everyone else, or why he wouldn't them to be treated like anybody else. Basically, he wanted you to think of where your standpoint was and write a paper on the exact opposite.
Okay.
And then that dude was like, I'm gonna fucking shoot you. And then, shit went downhill. And then later on, he gave us the exact same, motherfucker, he gave us the exact same prompt at the end of the day. So we had to do the same thing. Just no one in my class, tried to shoot the teacher.
Wait, so what happened to the guy?
Oh, I'm assuming he got caught by security and they locked the school down and all that. He didn't go into that, but I'm assuming it's exactly like what we think.
That is pretty ridiculous that the guy was like that upset about it.
Yeah.
It's a thought experiment, and then you just write why you think Jesus is real, and I don't understand why he would have to be all angry and get a gun.
Exactly.
Homophobia is a powerful thing.
But it wasn't homophobia that he was getting at. It was more along the dude. And the teacher was saying he got visibly upset when he was saying
that Jesus may not be real.
That Jesus may not be real.
Which
got visibly upset.
Which is funny to me that really religious people always resort to violence.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that, if you ask what would Jesus do, he wouldn't have walked to the trunk of his car and got a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, because Jesus had an AK.
Yeah, him and Peter on the mound blasting away at Romans.
Yeah, thank you, Family Guy.
By the way, you realize if Jesus were real in college, he'd be a hipster, right? Volunteering on his days off, having a good time and sipping wine with his friends at other locations, growing his hair out.
He would probably, his big miracle would have been to turn, roses into weed.
There you go.
I was going to say water into Pabst.
Water into Pabst. He'd be on the street corner playing guitar. So why didn't you watch the Oscars? Were you working?
I was working. And when I heard that Stallone had been screwed, I really wasn't happy.
Oh, I don't think he was screwed. He has an Oscar already. It's not like this was his one chance. It's not like fucking Leonardo DiCaprio.
He doesn't have an Oscar for acting.
Well, maybe he should act better.
He acted amazing in Creed.
I thought he got one for Rocky, didn't he?
No, he didn't. He wasn't even nominated. But DiCaprio gets 6 nominations.
Yeah, but this is his first win.
Yeah, still, he got 6 nominations.
He's the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. And I think they only gave it to him so he'd stop whining about it.
God, the fact that it's such a thing that he keeps getting nominated and woe is me, I've never won.
Okay, so Sylvester Stallone was nominated for 3 Oscars, but he didn't win anything. In '77, he was nominated for screenplay for Rocky and best actor in a leading role for Rocky.
And he was great in the first Rocky. He really deserved it for Creed, though. I actually thought that was the performance of the year by anybody in any capacity, supporting or leading. Because it's not like Leonardo DiCaprio, and I've seen most of The Revenant. It's not like he offered something that I hadn't seen in some really good westerns before.
Well, apparently people disagree with you. Again, like I said, I think it's just a way of shutting him up so we don't hear about Leo not getting an Oscar. I'm pretty sure if Stallone was nominated for 5 of them and never won one, he probably would have gotten one this year too.
Yeah.
But,
he was nominated for The Aviator. I did see that.
Yeah. The Aviator, Wolf of Wall Street, wasn't he?
Wolf of Wall Street, Blood Diamond, and... Well, some of them aren't even for acting. One was as a producer as well.
Yeah.
Blood Diamond was more of an action movie than anything else.
No, it got a lot of it got a lot of love that year from the Oscars.
And again, another black guy that wasn't nominated for being in a really good movie, apparently.
Yeah. But, he's got the last laugh. I'm sure he got paid way more to be in Fast and Furious 7 than he got for that silly Oscar-nominated movie.
By the way, that guy whose name Djimon Hounsou. Yeah. Surprisingly, was in a lot of really good stuff that I don't think people know about. He was in Amistad. Like, he's a 2-time Academy Award nominee, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was the lead guy in Amistad.
Yeah, and he was in Gladiator.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was in Gladiator.
Like, he's in some really good stuff that I just don't... 2 Academy Award nominations. Yeah, I was right.
So, So speaking of Sylvester Stallone and the Oscar he didn't win, the guy who did win the Oscar for Best Supporting Role was from our movie today, Bridge of Spies.
I was wondering if we were ever going to get to this.
I was like, it's been 2 hours, dude. You're gonna have fun editing this one.
I know, right? So then let's go through it. So I chose this because it was nominated, and I actually thought I was going to get a little more attention than it got.
Yeah.
It only won Best Supporting Actor, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it would get a little more attention. I mean, Tom Hanks is what, a 4-time Academy Award winner? And he wasn't even nominated this year, was he?
No, he was not.
So,
Oh, excuse me.
you all right over there?
Yeah, I just burped. I have
I
nothing in my belly except coffee, so it's just all frowns and burps.
I'm actually surprised that the two big winners this year was The Revenant and Mad Max.
I was surprised Mad Max was anywhere in the awards this year.
Have you guys seen Mad Max?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have actually.
Did you talk about it at the show while I was gone?
Possibly.
Sure, let's just say that.
Okay, never mind. I was going to pick that because I haven't seen it and I wanted to get around to doing it.
Oh.
I think we touched on it lightly.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever gotten too far into it, but I mean, it is.
I think the reason why the movie, the Mad Max, is so different and why it got a lot of love, not only because of its technical, because it won all the technical stuff, mostly sound and editing and costuming and makeup and all that, but the way it was edited, and the director gives it to his wife and is like, here, you edit it. I want a different perspective on this. And she edited, the only way to say it is like a woman. This is how Heather keeps saying it. And it gave the movie a different feel. Because he could have edited it, he could have had another guy edit it, and it would have been just a typical action affair. So, she edited it differently, and I'm not sure what she did because I've never seen, you have to see all the footage to see what kind of choices she made, but she did make some really good choices in the flow and in the tempo of the movie. So her getting the Oscar is an amazing thing, and I'm glad she did for editing.
That's interesting. If you want, she's a woman editor. Do you think that played anything to do with the fact that, and I haven't seen the movie, but I hear very much that it is a very feminist sort of movie. Do you think that may have played a factor in why that movie turned out so feminist?
I think it was feminist first, and that's why he handed it to his wife to edit it, because he realized he would lose all of that had he gave it to a man to edit. The story is about a woman who tries to liberate the sex slaves of a man and runs off with them, basically. And Mad Max and this other guy kind of get caught up in the middle of it. So Mad Max is kind of a secondary character in his own film. So it's really about Charlie Theron and these other 4 women who she's smuggling out of whatever the name of the town is, it doesn't matter, out of Townsville, and this other guy who gets caught up with them, and how he's starting to realize that everything he's learned was bullshit. And he had a strong female lead, he had a strong female centered storyline, that the only thing that he could do was give it to his wife and say, here, finish this off. Because if you think about the movie, the fire, the action, and the cars are the really only real masculine things, and the fact that it's a patriarchal society. But everything else is, the main character is so loving and nurturing that the whole movie is really about her and her taking care of somebody else. The end. Did I lose you guys again?
No, I'm here. I'm just goddamn.
No, my internet's starting to act up. I heard every third word from you. The past 20 minutes it's been like that for me. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
I'm reading some of the news and it's just heartbreaking. So, stopping to read the news. Going to talk about.
So anyway, Bridge of Spies. You're a big Tom Hanks fan. What did you think of the movie and his performance?
Well, since I'm the one that took notes, why don't you guys go first and then I'll go afterwards?
Well, since you took notes, you should probably go first, and we'll just riff off of you.
No,
exactly.
I feel like this is a good way to check which one of you actually watched the movie and who didn't.
Well, no, it was. What you want to go ahead, Mario? Do you care?
What?
Do you, do you
Don't pick on me.
do you want to talk about the movie first? Did you watch the movie? I assume, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Did you want to talk about
Yeah,
it first, or do you not care?
I really don't care.
Okay. Well, when watching the film, it was very interesting because this is kind of the time frame when all of the James Bond books. Oh, great! Heather just got home, so the dog's gonna be loud in a minute. This is
Uh,
the time of frame that all the James Bond books were written in. So this is what the spying game was all about. Was about the Cold War. So it was very interesting how they almost had a second movie going on about the U-2 spy plane and how it all came together at the very end and how he had to trade the people, which was obvious that it was coming. It was just interesting that we keep cutting we keep talking about how this guy's a spy and how he's bad and how he's trying to bring down America while we cut to America doing the exact same thing, which the juxtaposition of the whole thing, how we have to kind of it's kind of bullying. We're spy shaming this guy because he's working for the wrong side. So did you have that in your notes?
No, I was waiting for you to continue. Well, my response to that is I think this movie just kind of falls into where Spielberg's movie sets its lie. He did Catch Me If You Can. He's done several World War II movies. He's done Munich. All of these things happen to take place in a very specific period of time, from the 40s through the 60s. This is Spielberg's childhood. A lot of these movies that he comes up with are homages to that time. They're the formative years of Spielberg. So things like this must have fascinated him as a child. Not only because, as you know, he is from a Jewish background, so of course, he kind of gravitates towards that. What his family survived during the war.
Hmm.
So he's constantly telling that story over again, and from the perspective of the chiefly from the perspective of the Jewish population.
Hmm.
Then he goes into the 50s, where he's very young in that time frame, and he's these are the things that probably fascinated him when he was watching the news or watching television with his parents. Things like Catch Me If You Can, which is just an out there story, and he probably locked in on that
Hmm.
and really kind of was interested in that. And of course, this movie again, something from that time period. I'm surprised, and I'm not entirely sure he hasn't, but I'm surprised he hasn't done more stuff about like jet propulsion and NASA and visiting the moon. Those were things that were very much important in that time period. So it's par for the course with him. He does period pieces about the period that he grew up in.
Well, a lot of the stuff that he does is centered around Germany, because Munich, which was done actually, takes place in '72 because it was the Olympics. But Schindler's List, Munich, Catch Me If You Can, it wasn't. But some of
20,
the
26 at the time of Munich. So yeah, he was still a young man at that point, and I'm sure
yeah.
that fascinated him too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it did, and it's a horrible thing, and again to happen in Germany. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, all of this has that you pretty much hit the nail on the head when you say his Jewish background. That this is the main bad guy of the Jewish people. Before this it would have been the pharaohs, and he wasn't around during the pharaohs, so he's not going to make that movie. So
Well, I did write down in my notes something about the Jew. Some of the Jews in this film are almost comically bad. I mean, they're and I write down Bond villains in the making. For instance, the chief guy he's dealing with not the first German lawyer he meets, the second one,
mhm,
the one that slaps the table in the office.
yeah.
He's so exaggerated, he's so pompous in portrayal that it's almost a caricature of sorts. I don't feel like because he's done good portrayals of Jews before,
Yeah.
but for this particular film, I felt like some of the Jewish characters were a little bit too much out there. In fact, the gang that steals the coat, they felt like something you just threw together from like and this goes back to probably his memories as a child. It feels like that sort of fake gang that they threw together in things like West Side Story or uh, a bunch of blonde kids, with their jeans on and their jackets, and they're just, going out and
Yeah.
catching. Yeah, it felt like that, and it just, I feel as though this movie kind of, it wasn't his best portrayal of some of the negative Jewish stereotypes. I do feel it is a good portrayal of that time frame in Jewish, in it. Oh, I'm sorry, German stereotypes. It is a great portrayal of Germany at that time.
Will you quit hitting your desk?
Who's hitting his desk?
You.
I'm not hitting my desk.
It's not me. No,
What are you talking about?
are you sure you're not hitting your table or something, or
I'm sitting. I'm sitting like a foot away from it.
are you kicking it with your
Every
foot?
third word you say,
No,
all I hear is thump, thump, thump.
I'm not. I've got both hands on my little notepad here, and I'm like sitting a foot away from the damn thing.
There's a little notepad, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, I thought it was a great portrayal of Germany at that time when they were splitting the city up, where they were splitting Berlin up. I thought, but this is just a technical thing. I thought Spielberg did a great job of actually doing, uh, making it look convincing. I guess. I mean, he did make Berlin look like the dreariest place in the world.
Yeah.
It looked depressing. If sad were a city, that would be it.
Well, the funny thing is, he had to go to Poland to find a place that looked most like Berlin of the '60s.
Yeah, that's
Which
it's depressing to find out a world like that exists.
kind of tells you how well off the Polish people are.
Although to stick with the technical parts, the best probably period piece portrayal of Brooklyn I've seen in a long time. Think of what you see here and what you saw in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Mhm.
That was authentic to me.
Well, that part of it, yes.
No, that part of this movie, I mean.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did not feel authentic at all with First Avenger.
No,
It felt fake. It felt fake as hell.
yeah.
This looked real, and which is weird because throughout this movie and everything he does since he became such a big star,
Mhm.
Spielberg has a certain sheen to his films, the aesthetic quality there.
Mhm.
There's a sort of opulence to the sets, to the furniture, to just a texture that's it looks like you brought in a commercial artist, maybe not a Picasso type artist, but somebody that goes in and writes beautiful pieces for like postcards and stuff like that. That's the feel I get from Spielberg's the look of Spielberg films.
Yeah. See, the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind, and I think it sticks out not because it was well done and powerful, although it was both of those things, but it sticks out because it almost seems out of place in this movie, is when Tom Hanks is on the subway, and they do a lot of Tom Hanks on the subway in this, which is kind of cool that they keep going back to that and showing how different people react to him in different parts of his life. But he was on the subway in Germany, and he notices the people trying to get over the wall, and they all get shot, which is all done computer generated, by the way. And it's a very powerful scene, very powerful acting done by everybody who's real, who's involved in that scene. But it's just like they talk about it, but they don't show anything horrifically violent except that one thing. And I know it's supposed to loom over your head the entire time that this entire period in our history was, we were all like 5 minutes to midnight, and we're supposed to believe that the tensions are so high, and we see that in that one scene, but it also felt so foreign from the rest of the film that they threw this thing in the middle to add tension, and it just seemed like it was a little over the top. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, before I talk about that, the wall scene, I do want to say, here's what I think happened at the end of that movie. Tom Hanks is on that subway, looks at that married woman, wants to know if he wants to have an affair with her because he has rampant sex addiction that has caused a rift between him and his sister.
I think some of your pages are stuck together. I had thought that too. I'm like, there's two movies we've watched in a row that have, significant meanings on the subway, significant looks.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently, subways are the place to be most judged.
There you go. The fence scene. I thought was just a little bit too heavy-handed.
Yeah, exactly.
It looked. Be more subtle. Be more subtle, I guess.
Well,
Let's just have the subway just past a really well fortified wall and just cut back to Hank starting to frown, and you'll know why.
well, it could have been a wall that was covered in blood, and then we would have all known what that was. We didn't have to see the shooting.
Or just a wall in graffiti, like that's, or like a peace sign on there with somebody protesting it or something.
Well, they would have been shot having gotten that close to the wall. That was the whole point.
No,
But
no, no. I mean the wall on, that he saw on the subway.
oh yeah. But it's like they could have done something else to it that would have been just as impactful without being as shocking. But
Mario, Mario, you still
I
there?
liked it. No, I thought it was good for what it was.
the
I don't
movie
think they
or
should have changed it. I think it should have been what it was.
You talking about that particular scene with the fence?
Yeah,
Yep.
I liked it.
I mean, it wasn't like I said. It's just a little heavy-handed to me. It wasn't too
I
bad.
didn't think so at all. I thought it was exactly what it should have been. Because it was the reality of it is he's living in a place that is, or he's staying in a place that's,
that can kill him at any moment.
yeah, exactly. And what else can you do that other than him going from one side of the wall to the other side with people who just happen to live there, and he watches a whole bunch of people just die. He along with other people just witnessed death, and it's not. And for a lot of people, that was just the life. That was
Yeah.
just what they lived with back then. And so someone like him who lives in New York, who, yeah, I mean, it's New York is dangerous, but no more than any place else. And then he goes to a place that's on the brink of the Cold War, or at that point in time it was. And then seeing these people just get shot down for trying to make a better start for themselves, just to get away from the shitty life that they were going to be in. I think he needed to see that.
Then they should have put it at a different part of the movie. Maybe had they put it in before he went to the border, before he actually went to Checkpoint Charlie.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll give you that. It felt out of place at that point in time. Like, it should have happened a lot sooner.
Yeah, like
But
when they were going to his hotel, they could have been on the subway, seen that, and then the CIA could have been all like, yeah, you have to watch out for that too.
yeah, something like that would have been fine. But
Yeah.
it definitely oh shit, son. Is my computer not?
Did you not plug it in?
No, I plugged it in, but apparently I clicked my surge protector. I must have clicked it off on accident.
Oh, yeah.
Oh shit.
All right, you got that all taken care of? Mario?
What?
You got that all taken care of?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I almost died stepping off my bed.
All right.
You're doing this from bed?
Oh, it's in my room.
Oh.
I have my desk at the end of the bed, so I had to walk over my bed to go turn on go hit the power.
Oh. That much like the wall scene in Bridge of Spies, Mario gets killed crossing his bed.
It's true.
Well, when I say it was heavy-handed, I'm not talking about the wall scene. I'm talking about the scene at the end of the movie with the kids running around the streets of New York.
Well, there was a lot at the end that they could have kind of glossed over. I mean, they tried to bookend it with the subway and everybody looking at him as a hero now. And I think they could have just really done that with the family, because in all honesty,
Yeah, because the family scene at the very end when the wife's like, "Holy shit, that's where he was."
Yeah.
Loved that scene.
Yeah.
That was
Great
awesome.
scene. Yes, very good scene.
Yeah, because he just goes home and he does exactly what he wanted to do the entire time, just go to sleep.
Yeah. But
Well,
that's the thing. It's like the only people that he cared about the only people's opinion he cared about was his own family. What
Right.
people on the subway thought of him shouldn't have really have been that big of a deal, other than the fact that it just shows more and more things piling up against him.
Well, before I actually saw the end epilogue where they talk about how he was tapped to go down to Cuba and negotiate the release of prisoners from the invasion of the Bay of Pigs,
Uh-huh.
I actually wrote down that one of that it was a good scene because it was supposed to be the return to normalcy for him.
Yeah.
That he'd been through this incredible experience,
Yeah.
and then returns home and it's just normal. And I thought a great way to sell that was the running theme about the marmalade.
Yeah.
That he went out, just grabbed marmalade on his way back. You know, it was just another day at the office.
Kind of. Yeah.
Grab, and then you grabbed the wrong marmalade. Oh, my bad. I'll go grab some later.
Yeah. Well, another thing is what they don't tell you in the film was that he was actually part of the OSS, which was the forerunner for the CIA. So he was actually no stranger to the spying game. So his whole thing, about not wanting to take the case was a little trumped up. But other than that, it's like they showed a guy who was going against all odds, almost literally.
I will say,
Yeah, but it makes for a better film. You have to remember that.
Oh yeah.
I will say I felt the portrayal of 50s xenophobia a little bit heavier than I expected. Like I'm sure it existed. I'm sure no, it did exist, and it was probably terrible. My thing is the way it was portrayed in this film, like the judge, for instance, so just absolutely dismissive. No judge in their right mind would say that in front of another lawyer, because the lawyer then goes to the bar and it tries to have that judge disbarred, saying, "Well,
Yeah,
this
but you
red."
also have to remember back then they had more clout than anybody else.
They
I
also
I feel like that's something he could have fought though. And I feel like in a real scenario, he would if he did. I mean, I'm sure he did actually harbor those feelings, whoever that judge really was.
Yeah.
I feel like he wouldn't have. If he gave any indication, it was very heavily veiled.
In today's day and age, yes, and we can just go back to the Avery trial, the Stephen Avery trial, and see how everybody thought he was guilty, and his trial was just for show. It's back then they didn't care as much. I mean, it was a spy. It was the Cold War. We were literally on the brink of nuclear annihilation for a good 20 years straight. And there's a story about the Pentagon running through uh, launch drills where they do a simulation where the Russians launch missiles on us and we have to retaliate. And a general walks into the war room and sees a simulation going on, believes it's for real, and tries to push the button to launch missiles against Russia. And it took them like a half an hour to talk him down and convince him it was just a drill, that we weren't under attack and that he shouldn't be pushing any buttons like that. So we were the Watchmen comics had this phrase that they talked about being however many minutes away from midnight, and this was the nuclear clock. At any point, we were 15 minutes away from nuclear annihilation. So the furthest we would ever be would be 15 minutes to midnight. The closest we'd ever be, I think we ever actually got, was like 2 minutes to midnight, where we were ready to push the button and launch everything. And this happened on several occasions, and a lot of people don't realize how close we really have been to that.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm sure tensions were huge.
Wait.
The only point I'm making is that a judge would not say that even in that time period, because then the lawyer present in the room now has grounds to go say, well, I want a mistrial. My client is not.
Yeah, but you also have to remember he could say something like that at that point in time because this man was a spy.
An enemy of the
And there
state.
was nothing worse back then than being a spy, being caught spy.
No, that's
So-
absolutely fine. I
So
get that.
No,
I
here's the
agree.
thing. But for the judge to say something like that, everybody would be behind him because they'd be like, let's just say if Tom Hanks did go to the bar and say something like that, every single person would just go, shitty. This guy's a spy. He
I know.
deserves exactly what he got.
No, I completely agree with that. They would have done that had he gone to the bar. My point is saying that a judge, judge in his right mind would say that because he knows better than to even risk it. Now I get why they did it because in this movie because it gives that extra sense of racism going or xenophobia. I'm sorry, xenophobia going on at that time.
Well, that too. Plus, we have to have the judge say that because we can't have an internal monologue. We
Yeah,
have to have him so we know where he stands, say stuff like that. And you're
yeah.
absolutely right that they would keep stuff like that to a minimum. But again, because of the whole McCarthy trials and era and stuff, people were a lot less concern with stuff like that. I mean, there's a good chance that even if Tom Hanks did go to the bar and say, "Look, he said something disparaging about this guy who just so happens to be a Soviet spy," they might have been like, "So he's a Soviet spy. Who cares? We all think he's guilty too." So there could have been some. It could have been worse for Tom Hanks's career to try to blow the whistle on a judge like that. Plus, then you look like a Soviet sympathizer, or you look like a whistleblower, and these are kind of things that were looked down upon. Not everybody went and tattled on their boss or on somebody just because something didn't go their way. That's something that a lot of people do today, but it wasn't something they did back in the 60s. People kind of like sucked it up back then. And maybe they shouldn't. And if they didn't, maybe we'd have better policy nowadays. But that's the era of which they lived.
Yeah, I he ended up being those two things, by the way. That he was accused of being a sympathizer and a whistleblower.
Yeah.
But I do disagree he that he would have been he was already singled out from the moment he did that. Even the firm that he worked for like pushed him away, so, and he continued to do it anyway. So I don't think he would have had any reservations about actually going to the bar. But again, it's a minor thing in the grander scheme of the film. I just felt that particular thing was a little heavy-handed, maybe a little bit of what the Alan Alda's character
Hmm.
was saying after the trial was a little heavy-handed too. By the way, I made it a point to write this down. Alan Alda seems to be a favorite of many of the really good directors. Like you remember him in The Aviator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing a lot of the really good directors were fans of MASH or something.
Well, Alan Alda, he's always been outspoken about human rights and stuff like that. So he's done a lot of humanitarian work. So he gets looked at for a lot of this stuff. But it's interesting to me that if you look at Alan Alda's stuff after MASH, a lot of times he plays either a jerk or he plays the bad guy or like the herald to the bad guy. So like it was actually very interesting because I saw him on screen and I'm like, oh, is he gonna stab Tom Hanks in the back? Kind of a thing. And I was waiting for that time for Alan Alda to be turncoat or to be a dick or whatever.
I
And
felt the
it,
same way.
and it never happened. And I thought, that's great that they took Alan Alda, who has this mystique about him now, and they just made him a regular guy who by all intents and purposes would have been pretty much the average Joe. He was the closest person to Tom Hanks who felt like everybody else did.
Yeah, and in the way that he did feel like the rest of the world did, in one very small minor way, he did sort of turncoat, because he did get a little upset with Tom Hanks's character for pursuing it after that initial trial.
Yeah, it's only because they accepted Tom Hanks doing it because he was kind of forced into doing it by the government.
Yeah.
So it was okay because he was, this is constitutional. The guy deserves a fair shake. You know, Tom Hanks, has done stuff like this in the past. So it's no brainer. It's because Tom Hanks decided to pursue it further is when people are like, well, maybe this guy got to him. Maybe he is a sympathizer. This would be the kind of thing that would pull you in front of Senator McCarthy and be accused of being a socialist or a communist. The first part wouldn't because he had to. It's like a public defender. The guy who's tasked with defending, Charles Manson. You know, People are going to be all like, well, Charles Manson did it. You shouldn't defend him. He should fry. But he needs to go through the trial. He needs everybody to make absolutely sure that he did it.
Well,
That everything is done correctly. So
well,
that guy's kind of a necessary evil in that way.
well. Up until that point, really, his character, Alan Alda's character, Thomas Waters, uh, he doesn't give you any reason to believe that he's not doing this for noble causes. In that initial meeting, he's actually saying, "I trust you to help this guy have the fairest trial ever." That's basically the gist of that entire conversation. And so, I trust you to defend this guy to the best of your abilities without any sort of prejudice whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So up until that point in the movie, you kind of think, oh, he's an upstanding guy, just like Tom Hanks's character, James B. Donovan, by the way.
Yeah.
But then it stops. At that moment, you realize it stops at what he feels his fulfilled obligations were, things that he just had to do.
Yeah.
He's not doing it because of for the greater good. He's just doing it because somebody called their office.
Yeah. It's a shit assignment. He gave it to the guy who he knew would be impartial. That was it. He's kind of Pontius Pilate in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And at one point he's like, we're done. I'm washing my hands of the whole thing.
I didn't really. It feels like he didn't want to do it to begin with, and now it's done. Let's go have a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, what was your favorite part of the film? Either one of you guys. Go ahead, Jamal. You got notes.
It'll take me a while to find it in my notes. Why don't you go first, Mario?
I don't think I really have a favorite part. I like the movie in its entirety.
You didn't have like a favorite line or a favorite scene or just, that one thing that kind of just was like, oh, that's so cool.
I mean, it was kind of cool at the very end when he's like, he muttered "standing man" again to Tom Hanks when he was trying to make sure his was it Pryor was going to come back. But
yeah,
I really didn't have a favorite part.
I missed it. Did the Russian spy get embraced after he was traded, or did he just get put back into the back of the car?
Put back in the back of the car.
He was put in the back of the back car, but at the very end, when they're like, "Oh, Abel," it fucking on the text, it's like Abel was
reunited with his Russian family.
Reunited with his family, and he died at an older age.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Tom Hanks, for fucking Tom Hanks' character, he thought that guy was going to die because he wasn't embraced. He was put in the back of the car, and that's why Tom Hanks' character stayed there for so long, and that's why the lights died out, and because he was just watching him. He's like, oh shit, this guy that I defended for this long, this guy that he got to know fairly well, is going to die now.
Yeah, almost to the alienation of his entire country.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh cool, they're going to brand him a traitor now, or they're going to do all this shit, and they're going to kill him, and then but that was one of the reasons why he was there for so long.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that they actually put that text at the end about how he was reunited with his wife and family, when it's heavily implied in the film that the people that Tom Hanks' character met in that office were not his family.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to. Fake acting done in a serious movie, or intentionally fake looking acting done in a serious film, always it looked so weird. But it just made me think of how much there was a cultural disconnect between the United States and Russia, that anybody would believe what the woman and her daughter and the supposed uncle were doing would be anyway construed as genuine American responses or emotion.
Yeah. That I felt that too. Like, they're just a little off, and maybe that was the whole point, to give credence to the fact that Tom Hanks realized that they weren't actually his family. But I did love the scene at the end when he hands over the marmalade, and they're watching the film and they realize what he did, and she goes to look for him, and he's collapsed on the bed. He's still fully dressed, just not even on the bed like in a proper way. He just looks like he walked in and collapsed on the bed.
That could be my favorite part of the film, actually.
Yeah, I think that is, as far as like ending scenes and last shots go, that is beautiful, and it sums up the entire journey, wonderfully. That no matter how good of a job he did, or no matter how much of a hero he's considered, it was just exhausting, and he's glad to be home.
Yeah, and I felt like they could have ended the film right there instead of doing the subway scene afterwards.
Yeah.
Um, here, what was it? Spielberg, childhood years, Hanks. Okay, Hanks, most trustworthy person ever put on film. More so than even what's his name from It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, because even the scene where he's in the hallway with the messenger boy from the chief East German prosecutor.
Hmm.
At the end of that exchange, he gets up and he does something to intimidate or to force the hand of the people he's dealing with. And even while he's doing that, you get this sort of friendliness from him.
Oh yeah, he did that in a number of places. That's probably the one that it's most obvious because the guy was that he was talking to was kind of a peon. But he did that in the judge's chamber. He did that with the CIA guys. He was a bit of a very nice bully where he was like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm taking your lunch money, but you have a nice day," and then he'd walk off. I mean, it wasn't to that extent, but he was in this world where there was all these powerful men who tried to bully him, and he had to be able to stand his ground. So he comes in with this attitude of being a nice guy, which people mistake for weakness, and then he proves to them that he's not weak.
Well, he has this very friend. Tom Hanks in general just has this very friendly patriarchal thing to him. He's
Mhm.
currently the best father actor in the business.
Yeah, well, if you look at Road to Perdition, where he is on a vengeance ride with his son,
Still a
he,
great dad.
he's still a great dad. They're still doing stuff, and he actually becomes a better dad, you know, killing people with his son than he was before.
I feel like if a Superman movie done right would have Tom Hanks as the dad, as Jonathan Kent.
I could see that.
Um, by the way, one of the things, and it starts right at the very beginning. Well, after the things with the Abel at the beginning,
Hmm.
the first shot with Hanks. Tom Hanks' greatest strength is that you can see him thinking on screen. Like when somebody says something and you see him, like you can tell he's having like intense inner monologue
Yeah,
about what to do next, and so that makes it easier because this movie is a whole lot of talking.
it is.
It's just a lot of talking, and it's easier to do that when it feels like the actual conversations are real.
Yeah.
And Hanks, because he does that great job of actually, you know, portraying thought on film, of course, or natural, thinking on film. It's easier to watch. Plus, there's a lot of little tricks here done here and there to really sell tension in the film. Spielberg, one of the hallmarks of Spielberg is always the soundtrack that goes along with the film. It's almost a guide as to what you should be feeling at this very moment.
Mhm. There
So,
there wasn't much in the way of music in this one, was there?
I thought there was quite a bit for
Was
me.
there?
It is, but it's more along the lines of like ambience type stuff.
Yeah,
Because there was a lot of stuff that was going on where, like the whole beginning of the film, where no dialogue is done. There's no music to the logos. I actually thought the copy I was watching was broke because there was no noise. Um, and then you don't hear any dialogue, you don't hear any music, you just hear the ambient noise of the streets. All the way up until I think the first bit of dialogue is where did he go? Or it was the announcement, but I don't really count the announcement on the train. But it was
okay.
it was like there are scenes in there where you would typically expect to find music to add to the tension that they didn't put music into.
I'm glad you bring up the no dialogue thing, because I'm gonna strike 2 points here with the first one related to the Tom Hanks thing I was just saying. Silent acting requires expressiveness.
Hmm.
You have to be able to kind of convey things without saying things. And the second thing I was going to go at was this kind of proves to me more that Stallone deserved the Oscar more than Rylance, because a lot of what of was happening with Rylance in this film, Spielberg was doing the heavy lifting. Mark Rylance strikes one note, one tone the entire film. He's almost like this robot. He's monosyllabic. There isn't an explosion. There isn't a real show of emotion at any point. He's always kind of very straightforward. What happens is that Spielberg just surrounds him with so many things that help set the scene, whether it be the ambient music in the background, whether it be the fact that in every the way that Spielberg plays with lighting and windows in the scenes with Rylance.
Mm-hmm. Well,
whether he's sitting in front of the one in his apartment or the interrogation room with that large window where now there's a lot of shots of the coming from the we're looking at towards the window, so they're both juxtaposed in front of all that light. Or
mm-hmm.
in the second interrogation room where again they're in this weird room with lots of light coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that intense scene with the standing man, the first time he retells that story.
Mm-hmm.
What is that if not just a scene with one camera stuck on there with an actor just saying the line straightforward, no expressionless on his face? Spielberg does the heavy lifting there. He puts the camera in just the right place. He has the lighting just right. He has music going on. I mean, it's Rylance. Don't get me wrong. It was a decent performance, but great directors take decent performances and turn them into Oscar-winning performances, and I felt that's what happened here.
Well, A, that's exactly what did happen here, but B, the whole character of Riley is summed up in the phrase that he said on several occasions, would it help? Him blowing up and being angry wouldn't help, because when you're a spy, you have to sell the lie to the bitter end. And the only time that he doesn't talk about being just an artist in New York is when he's with Tom Hanks, because he starts to trust Tom Hanks. But the whole thing is, none of that would have helped his case. It would have actually hurt him. And you have to know when to play that shitty hand like it's all aces. And that's what he did. And everything that he did was, would it help? And the fact that he played it like that is you could say that a lesser actor would put more emotion into it because they wouldn't know else what to do with it. But he did it in a way that was just experienced. This is a guy who has probably been in the spy game all of his life, that he knows that no matter what happens, the worst they can do to him is, kill him quickly, which is probably what they were going to do. Because in that time, we didn't have a lot of, they did torture people, but it wasn't as publicized as it is today, or as big of an issue as it is today. But it's not like they were going to do anything to him other than put him on trial and kill him. So him blowing up about it wasn't going to help his case any. Him having emotion wasn't going to help his case any. Him, admitting to anything wasn't going to help his case any. So his whole thing was just let it ride. Just wait until something happens, and then when my opportunity comes, I'll take it. Everybody, thank you for joining us here at Makers on Film. And if you want, you can go over to mof.ninja and leave us a comment on what you thought of the films that we watched, the films that you would like us to review or see, or films that you saw that you thought were good. And you can also see, or you can listen to old shows. You can read the notes about the shows, other things. Someday we'll have t-shirts up there that you can purchase. You can see links to the movies that we discuss if you want to watch them. Or you can see our movie lists. Have you been working on your movie list there, Jamal?
Honestly, after my vacation, I just totally forgot about it. I will think about it again.
Okay. This would actually be the good time to do it, since we're going into action films that... think about it a little bit. Think about some of the things that you think people should see, and we'll throw it up on the website. All right. Anything else you guys want to add?
Don't put it in people's butt without warning.
Or permission, I guess.
Take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Bill Cosby. And thank you for joining us. And we wish you a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Love most of you.
Join the makers each week as they discuss film, TV, and pop culture. To learn more about them, go to mof.ninja. This is Michael Caine saying goodbye.
And I'm still listening to Tropical House.